Hey guys, welcome back to the Paradigm Project. We are here with Emily Checketts and Luke. What's your last name?
Petrey.
Luke Petrey. And today we're going to be talking about self-care and how you can like mind-body connection and things like that. And so let's get right into the introduction. So Emily Checketts, who are you?
Who am I? What a loaded question. Um, I am a Paradigm alumni. I think that's the most relevant piece of information to this place. I did not graduate in 2019. Finished Paradigm in 2019. I grew up in Draper, Utah. Spent a whole bunch of time here in Salt Lake Valley. I'm now living in Orem, going to UVU. I have a dog, and that's about me.
Sick. I want a dog.
He's
Me too.
What's your dog's name?
toothless.
Is he actually toothless, or is that
He's
just
black.
Okay, that makes
There it
sense. Okay, what about you, Luke Petrie? Who are you?
Okay, I'm Luke. Very similar to Emily, I chose not to graduate back in 2019. So we, I don't know, we were crazy. We are crazy, I suppose. Yeah, since graduation, I've done a lot of traveling around. I've spent, a couple months in India, Jerusalem, Egypt, Japan, gone to Turkey a couple times, and just kind of gone all around the world. Yeah, I used to be a professional free runner, so I did flips and crazy, things for a living. And yeah, at this point, I'm just kind of living life,
Right.
surviving day to
Yep.
day. But yeah.
That's awesome. Free running. I don't even I think about free running and I'm like I could never I could never do anything
It just
like
takes
that.
starting.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Um I don't know. What are you studying in college, Emily?
Computer science.
And what got you interested in that?
My dad works as the VP of engineering at Overstock, and so he's been in the tech world, my whole life.
Right.
And I was going to be a poli-sci major. Yeah, I was going to be a poli-sci major in large part because of Paradigm, and then I realized that the political sphere is nothing like Paradigm.
Right.
And yes, decided to switch my major, but wasn't sure what to go with. And my dad was like, "Hey, try coding class just to see if you like it." And I fell in love. So that's what I've been doing since.
That's so cool.
It's sick.
And you said you were traveling, but is there anything else
Yeah, what a
education-wise, or are you doing anything?
Yeah, so I'm not doing any school. I've been mainly just focusing on personal passions. I make music, I make films. I don't know. Yeah, I love to read, so I guess that's how
That's
I'm
sick. Yeah.
continuing my education. Which just lots and lots of reading and making things. Making things is just like if I can make anything, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then traveling around has kind of been my school, to be honest. So it's been really good. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I think that's super cool. I think reading and travel are probably the two best ways we can educate ourselves after school. And you actually reminded me of a quote that's hanging up in one of our classrooms. Mark Twain said, "The travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime." And that's kind of what that reminded me of.
That's really good. Yeah.
He was a brilliant guy.
Oh yeah. I would definitely have to agree with you there. Like a lot of the things that just a lot of the ways that how I see the world, and just my ways of thinking have been completely shifted by spending time with completely different cultures.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably So yeah, I'm not going to school, but like I'm going to school.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. So would you say like traveling has been more beneficial for you than anything else? Or like what has traveling been to you other than travel itself?
Yeah, I tend to stray away from touristy traveling.
Right.
I tend to spend at least a month wherever I go, so that I can really understand the culture and really, really learn as much as I can. And so, yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think it's been one of the most beneficial things I could have done with the last few years since I finished high school. Um, yeah, just because it's shown me like it takes you outside of yourself. We get into a lot of like I mean, just inside our own heads, but like within our communities, within our friend groups, within our country, especially, we get really caught up in a lot of things, a lot of politics, a lot of opinions, a lot of whatever it may be, and thinking that it's like the most important, crazy thing in the world. You step outside for a second and you see like children with no clothes on their backs walking along a street without parents begging
Right.
for food, and you go, oh, okay, so like this thing that I've been worrying about back in America, like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that is interesting to think about. I can't remember what it was, but I was thinking about something similar where I was like, I just need to be more grateful for what I have. Actually, my friend,
don't we all?
he's in Ghana right now, and he
Mm.
called me yesterday and was like, "Oh yeah, we have chickens everywhere and dirt roads, and we have a water tank that we get our water from." And I'm like, "Oh, I have a faucet and a bed, and like all these like a stable house and everything like that. And the weather's pretty boring here, so it's not rainy or insanely dry, but like just being grateful for the things that I have been good for me, but
Mm.
also it's been interesting to see the viewpoint from people around the world and stuff like that. So
And on the subject of health, I think that's something that's like really, really important. Where like mindfulness of that. Do you think in your travels, um, seeing all this has helped you be more mindful of the things that you have or don't have?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, like I said, like I mean, I think that's one of the most stark examples is little children on the streets without any food. But you think about like, um, you just see that the way that other cultures and peoples live, and you can learn a lot, especially from people who live with almost nothing, about what it really means to be healthy, especially physically healthy. These people who just like live for a very long time. The Japanese, for example, live for a very long time. They look young for a very long time. You can be 80 and look like you're 57 in Japan, and it's not. I mean, that's a fairly common occurrence. You see in places like Egypt, uh, hospitals are few and far between. Um, but on every street, there's an apothecary who just
right,
has medicinal herbs and oils and, natural, just natural ointments and ways of healing and of actually finding health from the earth. And it really sort of pulls your perspective away from needing to go and take drugs or spend thousands and thousands of dollars in a hospital for really little things. If you can just learn like, oh, what does this herb do, what does and so that it's really kind of changed my perspective and helped me realize how much we can gain from the earth, and from just living a healthy lifestyle, um, that can really, really help us.
right. I think that's interesting, and I want to bring this up to you, Emily, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, not only being grateful for the things we have, but also using the things of the earth and not trying to, create things like man-made things in order to help us, but like really embodying the earth in stuff like that to live healthier and happier.
Woof. Yeah. Okay. That's a big one. If we're talking about mental health, my roommate right now is studying to be a social worker, and so she's going to be a therapist. And one of the things that she's been learning is how, how do I say it? How overproduced and overprescribed mental health drugs are, and how detrimental they are long term, and how there's that. There's that turn. There's that like thing, mindset we have where people are like, some people just have chemical imbalances in their brain, right? Like some people just, that has actually not been proven at all. They did those studies on people's brains with chemical imbalances, quote unquote, after those people had already taken medicine, right? Like pre-med brains don't actually have incurable chemical imbalances, right?
Yeah.
It's not until we mess with them that they do. And then like going physically, right? There's so many layers. There's a documentary that I watched on YouTube my senior year called Grounding. It's an hour long and it's phenomenal. It talks about the effects that just sitting on the earth have on your body and how incredibly potent that can be.
Yeah.
Like the layers of connecting with the earth and how beneficial those can be are unending, right? Like there's no end to those benefits. Yeah, I could talk for days about that.
Right.
one.
Yeah.
We joke about like touching grass,
But like genuinely,
like we say like go touch grass is like an insult a lot of the times, but it's like no, actually like the impact that taking your shoes and socks off and standing on grass for 10 minutes in the morning can have on your day, like
unreal.
yeah.
Well, and you're also getting sunshine too, which is even like it's just
The
crazy.
lack
Yeah,
of
all of
vitamin
that.
D in our
Yeah.
diet is unreal. yeah, and going back to the mental health thing, like so many of these massive mental health issues that we believe we have are so environmentally impacted, right? Like if you just switched up your environment a little bit, there was a third world country. I can't remember what country it was, but they, America offered it, like there was a whole group of volunteers going to them to offer all these meds, right? And one of the meds they were giving them was antidepressants. And these people were like, we have antidepressants. And they were like, what do you mean? And they gave this example of one of the local villagers who had become injured, and so he had been working in a rice field before his injury. And then he became injured, and working the rice field was extremely painful for him, and he wasn't able to do it anymore. And so he became really depressed, and he wasn't able to get out of bed. He wasn't motivated to actually go to work because it was so painful. And the village saw this and knew that there was a problem, and so they gave him a cow.
Right.
And suddenly, this man was getting out of bed because he had a cow, and he was able to produce milk and to sustain himself, right? They were like, that's our antidepressants. We have a cow, right? Like, when we fix these environmental issues where we think that, like, we're broken, right? When in reality, our job sucks, and we're not connecting with people, and our diet is awful. We're not taking care of our bodies on any level, and we're so convinced that somehow our bodies are broken and that this is just how we function, when in reality, we've just screwed ourselves over. We've just put ourselves in the worst position to ever be happy.
We've kind of delved into this topic of health and its relationship with society. Mm. How does it prevent us from cultivating a healthy lifestyle, and how can we change it to help us?
We talked about this a little bit before we came. In my experience, so I struggled with an eating disorder when I was younger, and it doesn't affect me nearly as much now. But one of the biggest realizations I had was how much money is made off of people's insecurities, right? How much money and how willing all of these corporations are to lie to you if you're going to believe their lie, right? If you're going to buy their product, they will tell you anything, right? And so if we're talking about society keeping us from being healthy, I think one of the biggest things is how many myths there are about what it means to be healthy, right? And what it looks like to be healthy. In the 90s, it was really, really rough. And 1,200 calorie diets for women were completely normalized, right? That's absolutely insane. And like they called it the heroin aesthetic. That's what they call it now. But the heroin aesthetic, where all the celebrities were basically just heroin addicts, absolutely gaunt, right? They were completely emaciated and like their bodies looked like they were unable to sustain life, right? But
That's terrible.
That was the look. That was
Yeah.
the desirable
Yeah.
feminine body. And masculine also wasn't that great. But like, yeah. So societally, I would just say all the fads, all the layers of lies that we're just giving money to.
Right.
It's an extremely, extremely big business. Emily brought up the money that goes into it. It's an extremely, extremely big business to make people feel really insecure. One of the funniest, kind of tangible examples that I have of that is the fact that at Barnes & Noble, the dieting section is larger than the education and psychology section combined.
My goodness.
It's a lot of books about how to lose weight, how to do it fast, the secrets, the tips, the hacks, and it's really interesting. Oftentimes when you see people talking about doing things fast or the secrets or the hacks on how to completely change something with your body, with your mind, with your health, mentally or physically,
The easy fixes.
it tends to be people who are trying to make a quick buck instead of get you healthy quick. A phenomenal example of that is there's a really, really famous book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't about health, but this is a prime example of someone who exploits people's insecurities. In this instance, their monetary financial insecurities to get a lot of money. So it was found out after the fact, after Think and Grow Rich became a international bestseller, that Napoleon Hill was a con man. And he was working together with a lot of these other foundations and people who were in this vein of like self-help to essentially exploit people's insecurities knowingly and make a lot of money. And he was, after the fact, it came out, oh, wait, he's actually a con man.
Yeah.
And this is pretty widespread across almost any genre of self-help, whether it's mental, physical. It's a big deal.
Yeah. That's interesting.
We're so invested in changing and bettering ourselves that we're willing to give anything.
Yeah.
People know that.
I think it's interesting how, though, our society as a whole has become so focused on instant gratification. And so when we're presented with a really quick, easy solution to get something done, that has a really strong pull on us, I think, which can lead to this kind of exploitation. How do you think the idea of these quick fixes has influenced your health journeys?
That's a great question. Do you have anything to say about that?
For me, I think really the easy fixes are really easy to digest, right? Like they all sound so good and there's so many promises made. And so I think really being able to interpret things, right? And our generation is better at that than past generations. I saw a statistic. I don't remember what the statistic was, but basically boiled down to boomers are unable to look at headlines and see what is propaganda and what's not, right? Like it takes them a lot longer to dissect word choice within like articles and stuff like that. Whereas Gen Z is a lot better at picking up on manipulative wording, right? Because we've been so submerged in it since we were so young. And so I think our generation is coming to an understanding of this, right? We're a lot less likely to buy those fad magazines that are like, lose 10 pounds in a week, right? Like we're a lot better at ignoring that type of stuff. But I think really getting good at finding the real research on what impacts your body and being okay with not knowing it all, right? Like, I think there's also an unhealthy obsession with being this ultimate ideal of health and being okay with just living life sometimes, right? Like, sometimes it's healthier for you to eat that garbage or to just be able to get that A, or, right? Like, sometimes it's healthier to make sacrifices to your hypothetical health than it would be to sacrifice your mental health for your physical health. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that a lot. I know I try to live a healthy lifestyle, and a lot of the time in that process, I'll like look up different studies and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing is just trying stuff out and seeing how it affects how you feel and your energy levels and things like that for yourself.
Bodies are so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something interesting with that is not necessarily the health, but I've been down the get rich quick, type of thing. You're on YouTube and you're like, oh, I need to make a little bit of money. It's fun, and you can be like, oh, I could get something out of this, and then you do it, and it's like I did not get anything out of this, and that's a pretty quick way to see falling into stuff like that. And I mean, there's other things that it would take longer to notice what you're falling into and things like that. And I think that applies with money, with health, with anything like that. And it's interesting how you were saying the marketing for like boomers and stuff like that, where they can't digest headlines and stuff like that. But we're also, our generation, Gen Z, is so thrown into so many things that is also bad for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like
we're still easily manipulated.
They were easily manipulated through the word choices, right? But we're easily manipulated by tons of sources telling us the one
Sheer
thing,
volume.
right?
Yeah.
TikTok. Oh, my roommate who's studying social studies was freaking out because she kept getting all of these ads for Adderall and ways to get access to this. Like, it's a drug, right? It is a stimulant,
right?
Without any background checks. That was the whole advertising, right? Was like, you don't have to go to a therapist, you don't have to get diagnosed. Just take this Adderall, you'll be fine. No consequences, right?
Well, Adderall is basically meth. Let's be honest.
It's literally one chemical strain, one molecular strain away from methamphetamine.
Yeah.
It's intense stuff, right? And they're advertising it, that and birth control to these young girls. The whole point of the birth control ad was that you could get it without your parents ever seeing it, right? Like they would send it to your house disguised as something, right? Which means these 13 or younger girls are potentially taking hormonally impactful drugs, which can be so detrimental. And who knows, right, if they're being advertised on TikTok,
right? Yeah.
What is the quality there? What is the testing?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like, what is the sourcing for that? So
sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important distinctions to be made here is that there is it's not a fine line. Like, it is a major difference between actual health and the effects of medication.
Right.
Medication is a bandage. It can help. It helps a lot of people. It helps relieve a lot of people from pain, from a lot of really terrible side effects of certain illnesses, ailments. But it also creates just as much as it helps relieve. And yet again, it's a quick fix. True health, while it may in times go hand in hand and come with some medication, some pharmaceuticals and other things, true health takes a long time.
Yeah.
So anything that is advertised as being able to instantly fix your symptoms is never going to actually be fixing the problem.
I think there's a huge difference there, the wording, the fix versus heal. My little sister actually goes here, but she had juvenile arthritis, and she was diagnosed when she was 10 with this juvenile arthritis. Her fingers were swelling up and her back was in pain. Like, she was becoming an old woman, right, at 10 years old. And my mom took her to the doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, the only option we have is this medication that's basically chemo, and it will stop the symptoms where they are, but it's not going to heal anything. It's not going to fix it, but it will like stop her her pain from getting worse, right? It can also make her infertile. So just as a caveat,
Oh yeah, yeah.
your
You know.
10-year-old maybe not having children eventually, right? Like, but she needs it. She
It'll
has to have
pause,
this.
like.
She will have to have this. This
Yeah.
is the only option. You have to go with this. And my mom asked the doctor. She was like, "What about dietary changes? What about stress management?" Right? And the doctor was like, "That has never been proven to impact arthritis whatsoever." And my aunt has arthritis and has been able to help it with dietary changes. And so my mom knew immediately that was incorrect. And the doctor was a rough one. And was like, would you take the pizza and ice cream away from your 10-year-old? And my mom was like, you would take children away from my little girl, right? Like, what do you mean? And so, yeah, again, like the whole medication can create just as many issues as it gives. And my little sister was able to go on an elimination diet, and now her arthritis is basically gone symptomatically. And she's able to now eat normal foods again just fine. But otherwise, she could now be completely screwed up that way.
Right. And this is not to scare anyone if you're on medication or feeling as though you
No.
need to take medication away from doing so. But I think that the biggest thing is that you just need to be aware and understanding of the fact that drugs do not heal, they fix symptoms. And what actually heals is the right kind of food, the right kind of people, the right kind of environment, the right kind of mindset. And that is what actually is healing to a person versus fixing to a person, which is an important distinction, as Emily said.
And sometimes medications are needed to stabilize, right? Like sometimes a bandage is needed to stop bleeding or to just create a safe environment so that you are able to get those resources later. But yeah.
Right. Modern medicine is good, but
Yeah.
what isn't good is the level of exploitation and misinformation that surrounds it.
And that's what I was going to say is this isn't to scare anyone. It's just to say that there are many options. Don't feel like Have you ever looked up the white coat phenomena, I believe it is called, is when someone walks in with a white doctor's coat, your brain accepts that whatever they say is significantly more trustworthy than anyone else in the room, whether or not they have any credentials, right?
Right.
So just being aware of the fact that doctors are very educated, but they're not the only source of information.
Mm-hmm. It's like, as with anything, you just always educate yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't take people's word for it. And I mean, it's always good to look for people you can trust and get their opinions.
Yeah.
But you have to make the decision yourself using all the information you can possibly have available to you.
Absolutely.
Well, and personally, I mean, it's not the greatest mindset, but sometimes I just don't want to deal with things, right? And like really, try, I guess I could say, you know, sometimes you're just not motivated to do things, and that's fine. And like medication is easy, and it works for what people need and stuff like that. So what would you respond to somebody being like, oh, I don't want to go down that route because what I'm doing works and I don't really care?
I mean, like,
do it until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
Do it until it no longer suits your needs. And if you need to find something that suits your needs further, look somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. In my experience with friends and people who have taken medication, eventually it gives out, right? Like your body adapts to the chemical imbalances. And that's specifically talking about mental health meds. But like Luke said, whenever it starts feeling wrong for your body.
Right.
It's not anti-medication. It's just it doesn't work for everything. And there are a lot of other ways of really finding health. but it does work for things, and it does help a lot of people. And neither of us are experts.
Yeah.
But we have also had, both of us, as far as I understand, an entire lifetime of experience so far with no medications, and lots of, lots of success in remaining physically healthy. And so that's been, kind of personal experience there. Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious going from mental health to physical health. Like, I personally really like physical health. I'm totally into that. The gym is my go-to for anything really, and just exercise, jumping out of bed, doing push-ups, anything like that, and it's helped me, with stress, with other things in my life, stuff like that. It's been really good. So what is your experience with physical health and how that's affected not only your mental health, but also your personal lives and things like that?
I think everybody is different, and a lot of times we do like a one size fits all. I was doing so much cardio for so long, and that's all that's really advertised to women, right?
Right.
Like, there's a lot of HIIT workouts. There's a lot of sometimes Pilates, but that is basically, in my opinion, glorified yoga, and I don't love it. Yeah, so there was a lot of workouts that were advertised to women that just did not fit my body. They were not fulfilling, and they got really old really quickly. And then I found weight training, and I am obsessed, right? So I think my biggest thing that I've learned in dissecting my relationship with fitness and with, the gym, right, is just finding what feels good. And that is so individual. My little sister loves yoga and feels so fulfilled by that. But every time I do yoga, I come away feeling like just gross. And so, like, unfulfilled. So I think, really diving deep into experimenting with what fulfills your needs physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think fitness should feel like miserable,
No. Mm-mm. In fact,
I think it should.
Well, miserable on what level, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah.
So many studies on enjoying what you do with your body, right? Food-wise, if you don't enjoy your food, you don't absorb nutrients.
Right.
Your body will literally just push it through your system because it believes it's poisonous, right? If you're not liking what you're eating, your body's confused.
It's like,
what are we doing?
All right.
What's supposed to be done? So there was a study that they did, I think it was like Irish women and like some like African woman, like tribal food. And so completely different food groups, right?
Right.
Like, completely different food. They had them cook food and switch meals, and the vitamin absorption from these foods, like 30% different, right? Like, your body just hates it. So, and the same goes for fitness. Like, if you are hating your workouts, your body will like shut down, and that's why you're unmotivated to work out. It's because your body hates it.
Right.
No.
I think there are so many times, like I try to work out regularly if I can, and I think there's always this kind of idea that if you do just like a couple more reps, push yourself just a little bit harder, you'll see more visible results. A lot of the time it feels like working out for appearance rather than for individual health. And I think while sometimes it's good to push yourself, workouts need to be strenuous. We need to push ourselves, but we don't have to absolutely destroy ourselves, and then we'll just never want to come back to it. We'll end up dreading our workouts every time we come to them and not want to continue them and create the habit that's so necessary to have physical health.
And I think the difference there is intention, right? If you're pushing yourself because you hate where you're at, it's miserable, right? Like, you're never gonna. That's just self-hatred perpetuated, right? Into an action. If you are pushing yourself because you genuinely want to be better, and that's what you're focused on. If you're focused on a specific goal or something along those lines, rather than where I'm at is the worst. Intentions are everything.
Yeah, I think it's like, I also think that the terms fitness or working out are extremely vague in general and often confuse and scare a lot of people off from actually wanting to get into fitness or working out, so to say, because it's like, okay, walk into a gym. There's a whole bunch of people here who look like they know what they're doing. What do I do? So this is like, I just want to like plug, like we've been saying, it's there are a lot of different ways to be fit that are going to fit each person's body type and personality type, and actually help them to enjoy it a lot more. I personally, I hate going into like regular gyms. Like, oh, I hate it so much. It makes me just like feel like so weird, and I do not like it. And and just like regular working out with weights or running or whatever is fine, but it usually ends up making me more miserable. And so my whole life I've gotten really, really into more extreme sports. I started with rock climbing when I was really young. Rock climbed a ton, mountain biking, and then from rock climbing and mountain biking, I got into parkour and free running, like I said earlier, and that completely changed like my entire perception of working out, quote unquote. It was so fun, and to be able to find something like that brings you that joy, and is really, really fun, is so crucial. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it was like especially like in rock climbing too and in free running, it was like putting a puzzle together. So it was often a mental workout as well as a physical workout, because you're trying to figure out where your hand or your foot goes next on the rock wall. You're trying to figure out, okay, if I'm stringing together a line of flips and tricks or whatever else while I'm free running, okay, I can put this movement here. I can, after this movement, I need to take a step in this direction to get to the next obstacle. Then I can go up on top of this obstacle and time and distance this flip in the right way so that I can move directly and smoothly to the next obstacle. And it became this mental and physical challenge that was extremely gratifying to me. And there are a lot of different sports and movements and other things like that are really, really fun. So it's like, if you ever found yourself struggling to work out or get into fitness, maybe consider not just going into the gym if that makes you feel weird or miserable or like uncomfortable, and consider that there are so many other mediums that are a lot of fun and really really, really helpful.
I saw a study this week that I'm obsessed with this type of stuff. Again, the mental impact that your mindset has around your body. They did a study where they had a whole group of people imagine that they were working out, and then another group of people actually work out, right? So they gave the one group of people like an actual workout to imagine they were doing, and then the other group they actually had workout. And while the group that actually worked out had a 30% increase in muscle mass, the other group had 13%, which isn't nearly as big, but that's still half as much. That's still ridiculous, right? They did nothing different. Their body was just convinced that they were. And so they actually gained muscle. There was also another study where they took a whole bunch of hotel nurses or hotel maids, and they told half of them that they just implied, they were like, hey, your job is kind of physically strenuous, like I bet you're burning a lot of calories. I bet this is kind of like working out, right? And after like a couple months, that group of nurses that they had told that had lost like a significant amount of weight in comparison to the other group who hadn't lost any, just by the fact that they had believed that their job was working their body, right? So there's a whole bunch of like just mindset shifts, right? Like going on a walk could be just as impactful for your body as it would be if you were to just go to the gym once a week, if that's all you can get yourself to do, right?
That's a subject that's so fascinating to me. And it's something I've kind of gotten into in the past. I read a book called Peak by Anders Ericsson. And it kind of gets into that topic where we have these mental representations, and when we build those mental representations and what's in our head, that becomes something that's real. My old guitar teacher, I play some musical instruments, And my old guitar teacher told me during my time with him that when I get the chance, if I don't have my guitar with me, but I still need to practice, right? He told me to just kind of imagine how it feels, imagine the movements, imagine what I'll actually be doing. And I actually felt the difference. I felt it translate into when I actually did have my guitar and I was practicing.
Yeah, athletes do that all the time. If you hear any, like so many interviews with so many athletes talk about how just imagining what they'll do before a game, imagining that dunk, right? It translates to the game really, really instantaneously.
Well, and like a lot of bodybuilders, it's not necessarily imagining, but they'll, at least from my experience and things I've heard, is that they'll go and they'll flex in the mirror and they'll tell themselves that they're getting bigger,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I mean,
Affirmations.
there's steroids and stuff that's in the game. I'm not gonna lie, that's something that happens, but there is something there. There is noticeable progress if you're telling yourself, you're looking at your body and you're like flexing in the mirror and you're like, wow, I'm getting somewhere,
Yeah.
and I'm doing something. Your body's gonna grow more than if you're like, you're pumping the iron, but then you go in the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, where is my, where's my muscle? Like, where is that tone that I need, and stuff like that. And I've noticed that in myself, where I started working out because I wanted to look good, and I was like, wow, I really hate the way I currently look and stuff like that. And so, I would look, I would look in the mirror, I'd go on the scale and I'm like, why am I not bigger? Why am I still this skinny little kid? And then I started finally, I was like, I need to flex in the mirror and I need to tell myself that I'm getting bigger and I'm a strong boy now and stuff like that. So, but it was a mindset switch from putting myself down and saying, oh, I can lift this weight. Why am I not seeing that I can lift that weight? To, wow, I lifted that weight. Let's see if I can, lift a little bit more and look at where I've come from the beginning to where I am now.
Yeah, I would years ago, back when I was free running, like actually I was on more of a professional level. I would teach myself new flips, new variations of flips off of your hands or off of my elbows, with different twists, different angles. I would teach myself different new flips predominantly through visualization. What may have taken someone 5 hours of direct, like tactile training in a gym to get a certain flip, I would visualize a few days before I would go in for a training session, and I would get it within 30 minutes, right? And I would do the same thing in competition as well. Whenever I would compete, I would visualize the specific run that I wanted to do for weeks before I would compete, and I never had competition runs that I was super dissatisfied with or that I made mistakes on.
Right.
Because I would visualize and I would get my competition runs correctly pretty much every time through visualization.
That's sick. And I think not physical health or anything like that, but musically, also with Michael, I have seen, like, I'll watch videos of people playing the bass or anything like that, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that, and I just look at them doing it, and then I'm like, oh, I can do it now, And it's like these little things where, like, you pluck in a certain way or you put your finger down in a different way, and you couldn't necessarily tell by the noise, but you can definitely tell by the way that they're doing it that it's different, and it sounds cool.
Yeah, that's so sick.
We talked a little bit about like exercising from a place of self-hatred versus exercising from a place of self-love, and this kind of reminds me of that because instead of thinking about where you're at and how it's not as good as something else, we're thinking about where it can be and how we can get there. We're looking into the future with hope and belief that we can make it happen.
So we are out of time for this episode. At the end of every episode, we have a challenge and takeaway. And I was wondering if Luke, if you could do a challenge, and if Emily, you could give a takeaway for this episode for us.
Okay. My challenge would just be to look deeper into the places where you are getting the things that are most crucial to your health. So whether that is your sources of food, your sources of water, your sources of media intake, your sources, your environment, how much time you're spending in the sun, how much time you're spending in the grass and in the mountains. What is the water that you are drinking? Where is that coming from? Do the companies who own the water that you're drinking care about you, or do they care about money? Do the companies that own the food that you are eating every single day care about you or care about money? How are these major corporations exploiting people, including you, for money that you just don't even realize because you just eat it every day and it's becoming a completely normal part of your life? Take a deeper look into the sources of where you find health. And if you see something you don't like, make the change.
I think the takeaway that I would want from this is just that your body knows what it wants. Your body knows what health looks like for it, and it's going to be completely different. So the magazine that you're reading or that Instagram post knows nothing about you and how your body will react to anything that it's offering to you. And so really diving deep into what makes your body actually feel at its best, without any shoulds according to society's standards, is really, really helpful.
So combining these two, we need to listen to ourselves and then make a change.
Yeah. I like it.
Nice. Sick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you have any ideas for future episodes, we have a question and answer on Spotify, or you can email us at podcast@paradigmhigh.org or DM us on Instagram @theparadigmpod. And if you could please rate us 5 stars on iTunes, that would do us a wonder. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Luke and Emily. And to all of our listeners, keep engaging in great conversation.